And welcome back to Driving the Wild Side, where today I am celebrating the Rotary, which has returned this year in the Mazda CX-30. Sort of. The Rotary engine is actually being used as a generator to recharge the batteries, a bit like Top Gear's electric car. However, the Rotary has been around for a very long time. In fact, its roots spread all the way back to the 60s when it was used by the German company NSU. Since then, it's been used by Mazda, Mercedes, and even Citroën in their GS. Now, I'm going to be celebrating the RX-7, one of my favourite sports cars of all time. So let's get into it. Now, today's story actually starts here with this, the RX-3. Now, you may be looking at this and thinking, why am I bothering with a strange 70s car that looks like a Lada? But actually, you'll be amazed because this was actually a very potent force in the world of touring car racing. On the road, this had the performance to beat cars from Europe, such as the MGB and Fiat 124 Spider. So it's pretty impressive. So now I'm going to go and see what it's like out on track. And if you're interested, today's track is actually a track that doesn't exist. Now, this is the Bernese Alps, and I selected this track primarily for its beautiful views. And here it is, the RX-3. And despite this car's motorsport pedigree, it is absolutely terrible on track. It's rear-wheel drive, sure, that's good, but it's all over the place. The handling is dreadful. This thing leans and rolls, and the brakes are drums, which don't really work. Now, I want to say I like this car, I really do. I mean, I like these sort of interesting old cars, but still, this thing is dreadful. There's no denying it, it's absolutely dreadful. And I think this is definitely the worst of the bunch, if you ask me. Here is the first ever RX-7, released in 1974. Now, this is a naturally aspirated 2-rotor engine. It has 135 horsepower and handles very well, but this one I'm driving now has a 6.2 litre engine for some ridiculous reason. But I want to put this out on track to see what it's actually like. Here it is, stock form, on the track, on Bernese Alps. Now, this car was designed to go up against Porsche 924, and Mazda decided to offer an alternative which wasn't powered by a van engine. And I think this alternative is perfect. It handles exactly like a go-kart. I mean, sure, the brakes are a bit spongy, don't really work, again, but still, this thing is absolutely amazing. It handles like a proper sports car should, and goes around corners and has peppy performance. I mean, I love this thing. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's very good looking, and it's very, very fast. Well, not very, very fast, but fast for back then. So let's move on. Now here is the runt of the litter, the FC. I mean, I don't see why this was such a bad car. It was designed to compete with the Porsche 944, the mid-range Porsche. I think you can see where Mazda was going here. Now, this car has 200 horsepower, it's turbocharged, and it's actually very cheap. Now, the good thing about these cars is if you want more power, you can use the rotary engine like a sandwich. You can just add another rotor, make it a 3-rotor if you want, 4-rotor, and you can do whatever you want with these. They're insanely tunable, but do be quite careful because they can be a bit unreliable. In fact, check out my video if you actually want to see any examples of these for cheap. But for now, I'm going to do a bit of track testing. Now, unfortunately, this car isn't in Forza Motorsport 6, so I couldn't test it on the Bernese Alps, so I had to go back to Horizon 5 to test this on the Mexico circuit. But still, this thing actually handles incredibly well. It's got very skinny rear tyres, so I expected it to be all over the place. And it had a turbo, so that I didn't think that would help either, but still, I think this is very good. The handling's unbelievable, and the performance even better. Very smooth acceleration thanks to the rotary. I mean, there was a bit of a slide every now and then, but this thing handles corners super well. I mean, I think this is a perfect track weapon or drift missile. Whatever you want to do with this, it's just a perfect car. and I don't see why it's so underrated. And here is the RX-7 you all know and love, the FD. In my opinion, one of the most beautiful sports cars ever made. This thing is absolutely magnificent, and it's probably one of the most powerful RX cars ever made. 280 horsepower from a twin-turbo 2-rotor engine. Now this is proper Japanese sports car territory. Pop-up headlights, smooth styling, and of course, amazing performance. And here is the RX-7 on track. Proper performance now. We have a twin-rotor engine with 280 horsepower, and this car was designed to compete with the Porsche 911. I think you can see the pattern. Now, the handling is amazing. I mean, there's a bit of understeer, but not much, actually. The handling is very decent. I mean, you can really feel the turbos kicking in, and you can definitely feel that this car has much higher performance than any of the other cars on this list. This could also go over 150 miles an hour and was designed to compete also with the Skylines. But the power was limited, as you probably would have guessed, by the infamous gentleman's agreement between every Japanese manufacturer, so there wasn't too much competition. But still, I think this is definitely the best and the one I would have. And finally, we have the RX-8, the last rotary sports car before the rotary died, sort of. Now, this was a bit of a problem child. All rotaries are not known for their reliability, and this one is no exception. The main problem this car had was that it revved to 9,000 RPM, which is way more than any of the other cars on this list. Because this car liked to reach the high notes, its engine often suffered as a result. The apex seals, or the tips of the rotors, often wore very quickly, and as a result, this car would develop many engine problems and is not a great buy. It also gets very poor MPGs, and it's a bit of a frustration to work on. Handling actually is very good on track, I have to say. But, I mean, it's so noisy, this car, it's just not that nice to drive. I mean, and I think it's just not working for me, to be honest. I don't really like this car, I've never really been a huge fan of it. I don't really love the styling, and I just don't really think it's the perfect successor to the RX-7. I mean, even this Mazda Speed one, despite having decent power and looking cool, it just doesn't work for me. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. Please subscribe for more in the future, and until next time, goodbye.